I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who gets betrayed just days before he's about to say, I do. But here I am, and honestly, I'm still trying to piece it all together because it feels like my whole world just cracked open in one awful moment. I met Emily when I was in college. She was beautiful, sharp-tongued, and had this way of making everyone feel like they were the only person in the room. We clicked instantly, and after a few years of dating, I knew she was the one, or at least I thought she was. She was a little bitchy sometimes, sure, but that was just her attitude. She'd lie to cover her ass, but she was also fiercely loyal to her own ideas of right and wrong. Or so I thought. Things were good for a while. We moved in together, got a decent apartment, and I proposed on a whim after she threw a tantrum about me not being romantic enough. She said yes, and we started planning the wedding. I was crazy about her, and she seemed crazy about me too, or at least she pretended to be. Signs weren't all there, but looking back, I can see now that she'd been acting a little off for a while. She'd get oddly defensive when I asked about her phone, or she'd suddenly be busy when I needed her. Little things, but enough to make me question if something was going on. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I trusted her, or at least I wanted to. I'd always been the guy who thought I was pretty good at reading people, but Emily, she was a master at hiding her true self. The first real sign that something was wrong hit me a few weeks ago when I came home early from work. I had a gut feeling, and I saw her phone on the couch, buzzing incessantly. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I noticed a number I didn't recognize. It was saved as Bestie, but the tone of the texts, they weren't friendly. They were more than that. I saw her face when she caught me looking at her phone. Her eyes widened and she immediately started lying. "It's nothing, just some work stuff," she snapped, shoving the phone into her pocket. But I knew better. I saw the texts, late-night messages, flirtatious, suggestive. I felt a cold sweat break out because I knew deep down that this wasn't just some innocent work chat. It was something darker. I asked her outright that night and she just smirked, telling me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that she'd never cheat on me. But I wasn't buying it. I started paying more attention after that, watching her behavior. She became more defensive, more secretive. It was like she was walking on eggshells around me. She'd get snippy if I tried to look at her phone or ask her where she was going. And then, of course, she started staying out late, claiming it was work drinks or catching up with friends. But I knew she was lying. I could feel it. My gut was telling me I'd been right all along, that she was messing around with someone, probably her best man, Jake. The one guy I trusted more than anyone else. The guy she said was like a brother to her, but I was starting to think that was just code for I'll cheat with him and lie to your face. And then the night came that finally broke me. I came home early that day because I had a strange feeling. I told myself I'd surprise her, maybe catch her off guard. I didn't expect to catch her exchanging texts with Jake in our own damn living room. I saw her phone on the coffee table, screen lit up, and her sitting there with her back to me. I saw the messages, dirty, suggestive, full of sexual innuendos. She was texting him about how badly she wanted to see him, how she couldn't wait to make it happen. I froze, stomach sinking, realizing that what I'd suspected for weeks was true. My wife, my soon-to-be wife, was cheating on me with my best man, right there in my house. That moment, everything just shattered. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind was racing. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely, with the one guy I trusted most? I wanted to believe she was innocent, that it was some mistake or miscommunication, but the evidence was staring me in the face. There was no denying it anymore. I was furious, hurt, and so damn betrayed I could hardly breathe. And I knew that from that second on, nothing in my life would ever be the same. I didn't say a word for a long time. I just stood there, staring at the screen, feeling a rage I'd never known before. My hands clenched into fists, and I could feel my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst out of my chest. That moment was like a punch to the gut, but worse. It was the kind of punch that leaves you breathless, stunned, and numb all at once. I had to get out of the house. I couldn't stay in that room, couldn't look at her, couldn't even breathe without feeling the betrayal crawl all over me. I turned around, stormed out, and went straight to the bar down the street. I needed to think, to process what I'd just seen. I don't even remember what I drank that night. I just remember the blackness of the alcohol, the pounding in my head, and the swirl of thoughts that wouldn't stop. She tried calling me 100 times that night, probably begging or lying or trying to spin some bullshit story about how it was all a misunderstanding. But I didn't answer. I knew she'd lie her way out of it, as she always did. She's good at lying. That's what she's always been, a professional at denial, at denying her own feelings, her own actions, and even her own conscience. The more she argued, the more I realized that whatever she was telling herself, she didn't think she'd get caught. She thought she was smarter than me, better at hiding her tracks. The next morning I couldn't even look at her. She came into the room, all sweetness and sweetness, like she hadn't just been caught cheating on me. "Honey, I know you're upset, but let's talk," she said, trying to sound calm like she was the victim here. I looked at her and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. The bitchy, manipulative face she put on when she was lying, it was like I was looking at a stranger. I told her I knew everything. I showed her the messages on my phone, and her eyes flickered with something: guilt, anger. I couldn't tell anymore. She laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh that made me want to punch her. "You've got the wrong girl, Jason," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're just paranoid. You think I'd cheat on you with Jake. That's ridiculous. You're overreacting. I love you, I swear." But her words sounded hollow, rehearsed. I could tell she was lying, and she knew I knew. The more she tried to deny it, the angrier I got. I felt my blood boiling, and I realized I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I told her I was leaving and packed a bag. She begged, cried, but none of it mattered. I knew the truth now, and I couldn't pretend I didn't. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was bleeding inside. I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. I just needed to get out of there, away from her, from the house, from the woman I thought I knew. I drove around for hours, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to smash everything in sight. Part of me wanted to crawl under a rock and hide forever. I kept replaying those messages, her fake smiles, and the way she'd lied so effortlessly. How could she do this? How could she lie so convincingly? It was like she'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months, and I was just too blind to see it. I finally went back to my apartment just to gather my thoughts. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the good times, all the promises, all the trust I'd given her. And now, all of it was shattered. I felt so stupid for believing in her, for thinking that she truly loved me when she was out there cheating with my best man. That's the part that hurts the most, knowing I was the fool who couldn't see what was right in front of me. I kept asking myself, how could she betray me like this? And what the hell do I do now? I thought about confronting Jake, but honestly, I don't even know if I want to see him face to face. All I know is that I never, ever expected to be in this position. Never thought I'd be the guy who catches his wife cheating, especially with the guy she's supposed to trust the most. It's like my life turned into some sick joke, and I'm the punchline. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't look at Emily the same way. I mean, she still tried to act like everything was fine, like she was the innocent victim in all this. She kept insisting she didn't mean anything with Jake, that it was just a stupid mistake, that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. But her words felt empty, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed 100 times. I could see her trying to manipulate the situation, trying to spin her lies as if I'd forget what I saw or what I knew. I didn't buy her bullshit. I saw her for what she was: a liar, a manipulator, someone who thought she could play me for a fool and get away with it. Honestly, part of me wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe her so badly that I convinced myself maybe it was all some misunderstanding. Maybe she was just drunk, or maybe Jake had been pushing her buttons, and she was weak in the moment, but deep down I knew better. I knew she was capable of lying with a smile on her face, and that she'd do it again if it suited her. Meanwhile, Jake, I didn't see him that week. Honestly, I wasn't ready to face him, not yet. I thought about confronting him, about showing up at his house or calling him out in front of everyone, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't bring back the trust I'd lost or undo the damage. Besides, I didn't want to stoop to his level. I just wanted to get out of this mess, figure out what my next move was, and try to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. But the worst part, the emotional roller coaster. One minute I was furious, seeing red every time I thought about her sneaking around behind my back. The next, I was crushed, wondering how I'd been so blind, so stupid. I kept replaying every moment, trying to remember if I'd missed signs, if I'd overlooked something. And the truth was I had. I thought I'd seen the signs, but I refused to believe it. I wanted to believe she was just having a rough patch, or maybe it was just a fling that would blow over. But now I knew it was serious. It was real, and it was all her. I started to withdraw from friends, from family. How could I tell anyone? Who would believe me? The perfect wife, the one who seemed so sweet and loving, suddenly turned into this lying, cheating bitch. I felt like I was living in some nightmare, and I was just waiting for the dawn to come so I could wake up and realize it was all a terrible mistake. But it was. This was real, all of it. Part of me wanted to confront her again, wanted to demand answers, wanted her to confess everything. But I already knew the truth. I saw the texts, and her constant denial only made it worse. She kept telling me I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But no matter how much she lied, I couldn't forget what I saw. And I was tired of her spinning her web of bullshit around me. I didn't want a fake marriage. I wanted real answers, or at least some honesty. Then came the inevitable. I told her I needed to think, that I couldn't be with her anymore until I figured out what I wanted. She begged me to stay, to talk, to work things out. But honestly, I didn't see how that could ever happen now. The trust was broken beyond repair. How do you come back from something like that? I knew I'd never look at her the same way again, not without constant suspicion. Every kiss, every touch, was it real? Or was she just pretending, just lying through her teeth? I started to plan my exit, figuring out the logistics. I found a place to stay, packed up some essentials, and slowly withdrew from her. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I wanted her to realize that betrayal like this doesn't just go away. It sticks with you, gnaws at your insides. And now I was trying to piece together what my life would look like without her. I kept asking myself if I'd ever be able to forgive her, and honestly, I wasn't sure. The damage was done, and I was just trying not to drown in the aftermath. The days that followed felt like hell. Every time I saw Emily, I could see the lies in her eyes, the slightly clenched jaw, the way she'd dart her gaze away whenever I looked too long. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat, but I couldn't believe her anymore. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces that I couldn't glue back together. It wasn't just about the affair with Jake. It was about the fact that she'd lied to my face for so long, pretending everything was fine when she was sneaking around behind my back. I spent hours arguing with myself, trying to understand how someone I loved could do something so cruel. Was I not enough? Did I miss the signs? Or was she just that manipulative? Every thought led to more questions, more anger, more heartbreak. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I wanted was to wake up from this nightmare and find that it was all just some sick joke. One night, I decided I had to confront her again. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not when I felt like I was drowning in pain. I sat her down in the living room, face to face, and I let it all out. I told her what I saw, what I felt. I said I couldn't believe she betrayed me with Jake, my best man. I asked her why. I begged her to give me a real answer, not some bullshit excuse about how it was just sex or a mistake. Her reaction was infuriating. She looked at me with that slick smile, the one she always used when she was spinning her lies. "Jason, you're overreacting. It's not what you think. Jake and I were just friends. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're insecure, that's all. I love you, I swear." Her words sounded rehearsed, as if she'd said them 1,000 times before. I could see through her lies now. I saw the way she avoided eye contact, how her voice cracked just a little, like she was trying to convince herself more than me. I felt rage boiling inside me. How dare she stand there and lie to my face? How dare she deny what was right in front of her? I told her she was a damn liar, that I knew. She'd been lying for weeks, and I was done. I told her this was it, I was leaving. I couldn't be with someone who thought she could get away with destroying me like this. I felt the adrenaline surge through my body, the kind of fury that makes you want to scream, to smash everything around you. She started crying then, real tears this time. Not the fake, manipulative tears she'd used to guilt me into feeling sorry for her. These were raw, genuine tears, and I felt a flicker of guilt for a second. But that guilt was quickly drowned out by the bitterness. I knew her tears weren't genuine. She was just trying to manipulate me again, trying to guilt-trip me into staying. I looked at her and knew she'd never change, not truly. She was a liar, a cheat, and a master at playing the victim. I packed a bag that night, feeling numb and exhausted. I told her I'd be staying with a friend for a while, just to get some space. She begged me not to go, to give her a chance to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I'd heard enough. Lies, I knew I had to leave, not just for my sanity but for my dignity. The man I was confident, trusting, and proud was slipping away with each passing second in that house. I couldn't stay in the same place, pretending everything was okay when I knew the truth. As I drove away that night, I felt emptier than ever. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her betrayal, that moment I caught her texting Jake. All I could think about was how I'd been so blind, so naive, to think she truly loved me. Now, I was just trying to hold it together, trying to figure out what my next step was. How do you rebuild a life after something like this? How do you face the future when the one person you trusted most turned out to be your biggest enemy? I didn't have answers. All I knew was that I had to get out, had to try to heal, even if it meant starting all over again from nothing. The weeks that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thinking. I stayed with a buddy, trying to distance myself from the chaos Emily had brought into my life. Every day I'd wake up with this aching emptiness, wondering how I could have been so stupid, so blind. I kept replaying the entire betrayal over and over, feeling like I was stuck in a bad nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The worst part, the feeling that I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it all away for a quick fuck with Jake. I couldn't help but feel angry at her. She had the nerve to act like she was innocent, like I was overreacting. She kept texting me, claiming she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she loved me and wanted to fix everything. But the truth was, her words didn't reach me anymore. I knew her game. She was just trying to save her ass to keep me from walking away completely. And honestly, I was sick of her lies. One day, I decided I couldn't keep going in circles. I needed to face it. I had to confront Jake. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I found his number, but I hesitated. Part of me wanted to call him and tear him a new one, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I decided I'd just show up at his place. I needed to see him face to face, to hear whatever bullshit excuse he'd come up with. So I did. I showed up unannounced one afternoon, knocking hard on his door. When he opened it, I saw that shit-eating grin of his, like he was already expecting me. I didn't waste time. I told him exactly what I thought, that he was a piece of shit, that he'd played me and stolen my wife, and that I'd never forget how much of a rat he was. His face didn't change. He just shrugged and said, "Hey man, shit happens. Emily's a big girl. If she wants to cheat, that's her business." I clenched my fists, feeling the rage boiling again, but I knew I couldn't lose control. I told him I'd make sure he regretted ever messing with me. Walking away from that confrontation, I felt more resolved. I knew I couldn't keep dragging myself through this pain forever. I'd been betrayed, yes. That was undeniable. But I also realized I had a choice. I could either let this destroy me or use it as a catalyst to rebuild something stronger. I decided I'd start by focusing on myself. I needed to heal, to get my head straight, and to figure out what I really wanted. Part of me was furious, part of me was broken, and part of me was lost. But I knew I'd survive this. I had to. Meanwhile, Emily kept texting me, begging for forgiveness, promising she'd change, that she'd do anything to fix what she'd broken. I never responded. I didn't see the point. Every message just reminded me of how she'd lied to me for so long, how she'd betrayed everything we had. I couldn't forget that, no matter how much she wanted to pretend she was sorry. I just wanted peace, even if that meant walking away from her forever. I'd never let her manipulate me again. That's when I started considering my options. Part of me wanted to expose everything, tell my friends, my family, everyone involved, how she'd lied, cheated, and manipulated her way into my life only to destroy it. But I also knew that revenge wouldn't bring me peace. It wouldn't undo what she did. I realized that I had to focus on moving on rebuilding my life without her. I had to find a way to forgive myself for trusting her, even if I never forgave her for what she did. But the hardest part, accepting that I might never get closure, that I'd never truly understand why she did it, why she betrayed me so completely. She was still trying to lie her way out of it, still pretending everything was fine. And every time I saw her or heard from her, I felt that familiar sting, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the feeling that I'd lost the best thing I ever had. Now, I just had to decide whether I was going to let her win by breaking me completely or stand tall and walk away, knowing I was better off without her. Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep living in this limbo of pain and anger. I had to make a choice, either let her poison me or take control of my life again. I chose the latter. I started going to therapy, trying to understand how someone I loved so much could do something so cruel. It was a long process, and honestly, some days I still felt like I was barely holding on. But I knew I had to keep moving forward. I cut ties with Emily completely. No more texts, no more calls. I blocked her on everything. I didn't want her to have that power over me anymore. The anger and betrayal still burned sometimes, but I learned to sit with those feelings instead of letting them control me. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most necessary. I had to rebuild my sense of self, piece by piece, even if it meant starting from nothing. Looking back, I see that this whole experience has changed me, not just because of what she did, but because of how I handled it. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the signs I might have missed. But I'm also stronger. I refuse to let someone's lies define me or ruin my life. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and proving that you're better than what they tried to make you. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut. Do. Ignore the signs and don't let anyone manipulate you into staying in a toxic situation. It hurts, yes. It's a brutal process, but in the end, you'll come out stronger. You'll find your way back to happiness, even if it's just the small, quiet kind of happiness you get when you realize you're finally free. My life isn't perfect now, but it's mine, and I'm finally at peace with that.